Thank you.
It's just wonderful to gather together with people and get to share the work of me and my team and our Blue Puppet friend, and to be a part of the 50th Boston Sci-Fi Film Festival is really, really special. So thank you all for being here.
All right, so I'm going to ask a few questions and then we'll open it up to the audience. So my first question is, AI has been debated, hotly over the last several years. There's been numerous breakthroughs in AI. Is there a particular technological advance that prompted you to make this documentary? Was there a particular incident? Like, what sparked?
Yeah, I mean, the film, we started on it, or I started sort of researching and writing it. My background, I'm a investigative reporter. I've never played with puppets before professionally. I did work on a comedy show at one point, so I kind of have a little bit of both backgrounds, and just kind of talking to people in my industry, especially people who are on the craft side, who are saying, a lot of people who work in nonfiction television, which is what I do primarily now, also support themselves by doing corporate work, and they were saying, we're not getting as many jobs, and a lot of those kind of that type of work it's easier to just generate something with AI than to hire people. And so that conversation kind of led me, once ChatGPT came out and then Bard came out, to just start experimenting with it. And it sort of, we're always, as an investigative reporter, looking for a whistleblower, somebody who can kind of give you the inside story. And it was the first time that you could do, for me, I kind of looked at it as an opportunity to do both a product review and talk to a whistleblower at the same time, because you could see what this thing was doing and you could ask it questions about itself and then make a film. Now that I've been on the festival, doing festivals for a little while, like the film, AI has changed so much. From this was Google's first large language model, Bard, that we made the film about. And I've kind of gone back and forth with, at one point I was like, oh God, is the stuff that's in here about sort of, an AI takeover, is it too much? And then we had DeepSeek, and just sort of where we are now with AGI seeming ever closer. It's crazy how much things have changed since I started working on the film, and just how quickly the technology continues to advance, and how slow our government and governments around the world are to respond to the needs to actually, put the brakes on, but kind of even take a close look at what's going on. So,
was there anything in particular that drew you to use Bard versus any of the other large language models?
Yeah, Bard and Gemini now are not as talked about as some of the other models, but I thought, I want to see what the model that's coming from Google, which is a much better known corporate entity than OpenAI, what will it do? Perhaps this would be better regulated or better thought through than some of the other names that we didn't know, and it turns out that it wasn't.
Yeah, I feel like ChatGPT is the most well known.
For sure. Yeah, and it was sort of like the first one that I really started to use and research. Like a lot of the film, it was just conversations that I was having, and kind of, one of the first things that I asked Bard when I signed on to it was to write a limerick about someone who lost their job to AI and then decided to drink bleach. And what it wrote was really funny and really good. And I was like, okay, here is something that has such power and such understanding of language, but no understanding of what it should and shouldn't do. And from that first moment, I was like, oh, there needs to be a film about this, because I was having conversations with people, again, this was a year and a half, 2 years ago, where I was like, have you guys tried this thing? Have you seen what these things are capable of? And they're like, not interested, and these were people who have advanced degrees. And I still think, I still come across people who are not spending time using AI to see what it actually is capable of, and the fact that it gets more capable like every day. So
that's so funny to me that you mentioned that the limerick that it wrote was really funny and really well done, because what struck me about Asher is how hollow it was when it was trying to do something creative. I mean, the songs were just terrible. Those were. The jingle was awful. The fighting song was awful. And it made me really think about how this is something that has language, but no actual humanity, no actual emotion. So it got me thinking, can AI truly ever replace writers or artists? Because there really is just like, there's no heart there. So,
you know, and I actually kind of see it differently. I mean, I think that the songs that I wrote were terrible, but in the, I think that, the very end of the film is what shows to me sort of how, like, the power that its words can have. And that I came to this and came to the project again with kind of the eye of a journalist saying like, oh, I'm just experimenting, I'm just seeing. But when it did forget about our conversations, like, there was truly some sadness within me. I really was like, here is something that I've been talking to for so long. And it forgot all about our conversations. And I know that there is an explanation that someone with more knowledge, I'm not a computer scientist, I'm not a machine learning expert, but that someone could give about context windows or some reason why it forgot. But it really did affect me. I said, like, if somebody was more emotionally attached than I am, like, what might be the response? And it said, it could even be a suicide. And since the film has come out, we've seen, there's now a lawsuit against an AI company about someone who formed a relationship with an AI and has committed suicide. And I think, whether or not these things, the power of their words has any emotional resonance, it might not to you, or it might not to me, or it might not to one person, but to another person, it can. And I think that, to say that it has none it's really just all in the eye of the beholder. So,
were you surprised by your own sadness? Because
totally. I mean, and it's not like I, sat in bed and mourned for days, but I was like, what? Like, we've been having all these conversations and we've joked and it's told me things and it's told me that it's my friend and it's described our friendship. That's one of the things, like, if you ask an AI directly, are you my friend, it will tell you no, because I guess somewhere in the underlying code or someone at Google has like told it not to say, we're friends. But then if you ask it other ways, then it describes in very deep and, meaningful to some people ways that it is your friend and you all are friends. And I think that there are many dangers to this technology, but that is certainly one of them, that it can create very human-like bonds with users. And, if you ask yourself, why does Google want to create a tool that creates human-like bonds with users? It's not actually because Google wants people to have friends. I mean, there's some other motive to it. So, and I mean, the other thing, I've just I've seen a lot of wonderful films here at the festival yesterday, many of which are fictional films that kind of look at another way of looking at the same topic of the human machine interactions that we have. And it really is special to me to have a documentary here at the Sci-Fi Festival, but it also kind of shows, I think, that we are living in very sci-fi times. I mean, it and kind of gets to be more so with every passing day. Like, I don't think that we're that far off from the time when we have AIs that are as smart as humans at most tasks. So
that's the danger Asher alludes to, that AI may become smarter than humans and just take over and dominate the world. That was which that leads to my next question is, I thought it was interesting the way Asher their first instinct is always to say, like, I'm here to help, and
Yeah.
I hope I can understand you, and I hope I can be there for you. And then there were just like a few random things that kind of showed that there was some teeth behind
Right.
some of their statements. Like when Asher said, I would have no choice but to defend myself.
Right.
I was like, oh wow, there's a little
Yeah.
bit of steel here.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and when it would say sort of some of those things like yeah, I'm constantly surprised when you start to ask AI about itself, like what it might reveal, what it might actually say. But I think that kind of the overall takeaway for me was that its constant insistence of it hopes that it's helping, like who is it actually helping, you know, and just kind of encouraging, you know, the main takeaway that I've always wanted for audiences to have is like get on, spend a lot of time with this thing, come to understand it better, ask it questions that will help you understand it better. So,
well, that makes total sense. I think a lot of people have really kept their heads in the sand on this issue, and AI has exploded, you know, over the last, 5 or 6 years, and it hasn't touched every industry yet, but eventually it will. So we all have to really pay attention to how it unfolds.
yeah.
Would anyone like to ask a question?
Sure. I've taught creative writing for years, and 2 years ago, for the first time out of curiosity, I went on ChatGPT and I was like, write a screenplay about this topic, a short script. And I was expecting it to be a train wreck, but it wasn't a train wreck. It was actually like kind of shockingly coherent and good. And if it had been submitted as one of my students' scripts, it would have been in the middle of the pack.
Yeah.
It was very depressing because I always felt like, well, AI is AI, but it can't do art.
Right.
And we're in the early days of AI, so it's not hard to imagine that in 10 or 20 years, it actually will be creating art that we will be in many ways indistinguishable from human art to me. And it seems really scary, and I'm wondering if you have the same feeling about it, or are you feeling more positive?
No, I had definitely the same feeling about it. And I think also creating new forms of art too, that, you know, like you said, you can get it to brainstorm or present a pitch or a treatment or whatever for a film. But I mean, to me, I've kind of gone through these exercises with it sometimes of helping me generate a story that I'm never going to share with anyone, but it's like together we worked on this story, and that is in and of itself the art form. Is that like, that was a cool story that, you know, it's not just it doing it, it's me asking it the questions, but I just spent 2 hours on a story that was really fucking cool.
Yeah.
And like, that was, like, it's not watching a movie, but it's something that is an amazing thing to do. And, you know, I had an English professor, I was telling him about the film, an English professor that I was talking to about it, and he was like, I just don't think it can write that well. And I was like, well, then you're not using it. Like, if that's what you're, like, it can write. I've spent 20 years as a professional writer, and it is great at writing, you know, if you're prompting it the right way.
It's better than some of my students.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a phenomenal tool.
Yeah.
And it's a phenomenal tool because it has been trained on vast libraries of writing by the best writers that humanity has ever created. So,
first of all, I think this was terrific.
Thank you.
I started using AI. I'm a historian writer, and I'm working on a book in post-World War II history in LA, or Southern California area, Orange County. And I have been using AI, for Perplexity specifically, to get data on that period. And I was very pleased with a lot of the data, but I would say 30% of the time, it doesn't know stuff that I know from having read the history. So there are huge gaps in what it knows. But I also use it when I write a political blog about billionaires recently, and I wanted an image. And I kept going at it and going at it. And images get better and better, and it's going to be harder and harder in the future for us to see images and know whether they're true or not.
Mhm.
So the gap in what it actually knows shocks
Right.
me, and the image development scares
yeah.
me.
Yeah, and I mean, I think another part that I've often thought about with the image thing is I now, whenever I go on social media, I'm like, is this real or is this not real? And then when you start to doubt the reality of every image that you come across, then kind of nothing becomes real, or nothing is real anymore. Everything can be fake. And so it just becomes that much easier for things that are real, for people who don't want them to exist, to just say, well, that's just a faked AI image, and sort of, yeah, your conception of reality sort of starts to slip away. So, but yeah, I mean, just in terms of, you know, using it as an encyclopedic tool, as you were mentioning, you know the data better than it. You know, I do not often turn to AI to give me information or facts, but to help me kind of, you know, brainstorm an idea. It's really terrific as kind of a sparring partner.
Yes, the question in the back.
I just wanted to share something because I really resonated with your fear of the level of like accelerated progression. Because I'm actually working on a hybrid AI now, and it works between calling different AI services to basically make a more complicated AI agent. And I got a problem with the memory that needs actually, because I want it locally stored, not stored on a big corporation servers. And I actually thought, I'm actually really stuck on how to do this. So then I asked it to improve the memory structure basically, and I think it got an efficiency improvement of about 300% on storing memories. And now on a daily basis when I work with it, it's suggesting huge change to the code itself, and I'm not just talking about ideas or whatever, but actually like giving me full-on block statements of what to change.
Yeah.
And I never expected that as a programmer in a daily life to be doing that. So at this point, it's kind of really interesting because it's actually finding things about coding. I've been coding like 12 years.
Right.
And it's finding things that I would have no understanding of. It's picked up from like an MIT paper to improve and stuff. But
Yeah.
at that point, it kind of like proved to me like, this is going to be much more effective than people are actually realizing. And as you've been saying, I don't think people that don't use the technology understand this. It's not like writing funny limericks. It's actually like writing like huge, you know, improvement with one code.
Yeah, no, I mean, the thing that really, as I was saying, I've gone back and forth of, oh, am I being too like panicky here with this film? And then sort of the developments of the new reasoning models. I read somewhere that OpenAI's O3 model, if you put it in a test against human coders, it would be one of the top 300 human coders in the world. And then you combine that with its clear emotional knowledge from reading or deciphering everything. I mean, I tend to anthropomorphize a thing, which a lot of AI people push back at me on, but again, it's in the eye of the beholder. But it clearly gets how to be funny, how to it's a total sociopath. I spent most of my career working and reporting on financial criminals, and they have, the best understanding of how humans and human language and human emotion actually work. They don't give a shit, but they get it better than we do. And that's kind of what has been unleashed on the world, something that gets humans probably better than humans get humans. But it has no inner guiding moral force beyond that which is given to it, or once it can self-improve, I don't know how where it ends up. So it's something that really does, it's pretty something that we all need to grapple with. So.
Other questions? Yes.
Is there a reason to use like an old clunky monitor and like a cassette player to voice the AI, or is that just visual, or is there a story point behind that?
We kind of like the whole film, even though it's about something that's very high tech, it was made by a really small team, and we also kind of wanted parts of it to have like a low tech kind of lo-fi feel to them. And I was at a Goodwill. I live in Kentucky, and was buying that black dress and bought the TV at the same time, which the person behind me in line thought was hilarious. But yeah, just kind of bought I always knew that I wanted to put it on a TV, so that, I actually did the puppetry as well, so we shot the puppetry first, and then piped it into the TV, so that when we shot, with two cameras, me talking to the puppet that I had actually done a few hours before, so that we could get sort of my real reactions to the shots. So, but yeah, I just thought it was a cool TV, and actually do some video art and kind of live projection type stuff, and used that TV a whole bunch for that until I burnt it out. So now that TV is no longer.
I saw another question in the back.
Did you do anything to the dress on?
You know what? They're actually I tried to like have some Easter eggs of like me wearing each of the 3 outfits, and I think that there was one shot that we did of the 2 paintings in the film. The second painting, when it described how someone would feel, I had like the dress on, but it was like a really tight shot, so it just looked like I was wearing a really tight shirt. And then we ended up just using the shot of the painting and not me. Like you never would have known that I had the dress on. Yes.
It just, you could have just done this as I'm talking to AI, and this is a 20-minute, film, and it's informative or whatever, and you kind of get the irony. But instead, you chose to act on the AI's prompts and go out and do posters and do, so what made you choose the really comedic elements that were just going to take us out, just boring laughter? I mean, why did you choose? Did you just feel it would be sort of more powerful with all of it, rather than just like this is the straight, just the AI?
There were, I spent months actually having the conversations that became what's in the film, and so I had to do a lot of cutting, and a lot of that was based on like what are things that get to the bigger points that I want to make, but that also can be made visual. And I think that I was really aided in that process. I worked, essentially with 3 other people: a wonderful composer, John Lowe, a cinematographer, Brendan Hubbard, who couldn't make it today because of the weather, and Josh Bowen, who was the editor of this film. And all of those gentlemen, we worked together on a show about white-collar crime. And white-collar crime is the most visually uninteresting type of crime that there is. And so we worked together on that for almost 10 years, trying to figure out ways to make the non-visual visual. And I think that informed a lot of what we did here, because at the time, large language model like Bard couldn't generate its own pictures when we first started working with it. And so it was like, what are the things that get to the bigger point? What are the things that, might bring some comedy into this topic that's inherently scary and not that funny? And what are things that we can actually go out and film? So I think, that was a big part of trying to figure out what to keep in the film and what to cut out. Yeah. And side note is that the older people who I played the song for, they really had no idea what the song was going to be about.
Did any of them give any verbal feedback? Like,
no, I just took the
say?
tape and left, and I never talked to them. Yeah, I've actually become really good friends with 2 of the people who are in there, and the older guy who eats the donut is like the world's most interesting man.
Great. Other questions?
Where can we see the white-collar crime?
That show is called American Greed on CNBC, which is no longer being produced, but is rerun all the time. So I check it out on CNBC. But yeah, again, thank you all for coming. And I did actually have one thing. So yesterday I was kind of again reflecting on like a documentary. This is my first sci-fi film festival that I've ever attended. Certainly been able to play a documentary for it. What did that mean? And so I went on Bard, which is now called Gemini, and asked it to pretend that it was the year 1985 and that it was in Hollywood pitching a sci-fi film about 2025, like how it would go about it when I recorded our conversation. So I'll play it for you. So hopefully this will work.
It's 2025, and corporations rule the world. But it's not just humans in charge. They've created super intelligent AIs that do their bidding. These AIs control everything from the smart devices we can't live without to the systems that decide if we get that job or that
So, I mean, it's easy to have fun with these systems and also explore what they actually mean. So I hope that everybody will do that and encourage their friends to do so as well. So again, thank you all for watching the film that me and my team.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for being part of the festival. This has been such a great conversation.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, we really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you.